This is Canucks Only.
This is Canucks Only.
Here are your hosts, Shylo Smith and Rob Young.
Well, good evening, Shylo. How are you?
Good evening, Rob. I'm good. I'm excited for next season.
It's about that time of year. It's we're talking about next year, and you know, this has been a crazy year for many things. As I've been telling people lately, like, what a year to start a podcast. In the third worst season of all time for the Canucks, and a condensed Olympic schedule where there's games every 2 days, and you know, for those of us with some semblance of a life, you know, it was very difficult to kind of keep up with all the games. But you know, for the most part, with the amount of losing streaks that I'm looking at here on the Canucks schedule, it wasn't always it wasn't always the best of times. It was definitely the worst of times. So. How are you feeling now? It's April 19th. The playoffs have started. We're going to wrap up here with the season, catch up on a couple of games. But how are you feeling overall?
I mean, overall, I'm you know, I think there's some glimmering light in what we're seeing. Okay. I am still a little disappointed in deployment of the players. Like, I really like Tolopilo should have, I think, played, you know, 80% of the last 8 games. Like, you know, like he should have been way more involved in the games than he was, and he, you know, barely got anything. So a little disappointed there. It was one of those things where it was just like, I still didn't fully understand what it was that Foot was attempting to achieve. It just felt like he was just doing all the wrong things. You know, he would do a couple of things where you're like, okay, here we go, and then just fall back into the old thing, right? Like, oh, good, he's got Atu Ratu out there for some face-offs because he's at 81%, and then there's like a big offensive draw, and he sticks someone in there who's at 33%. So. Mm-hmm. I just question those weird little things, and who knows? It most likely with Allvin leaving, we're probably going to be seeing some changes in the coaching staff. I'm assuming, but I mean, to me, that just seems like it's going to be a given that we're going to see a change there. So, but yeah, again, I really wanted Tolopilo to get more looks, more, especially after that, like when we spoke, he had that one game and it was just a really rough game. And then I was like, you know what, like, throw him in the next game, put him in there, and like, let's teach him some resilience type thing, right? You got to be able to bounce off your wins. You're not going to be sheltered. And this is the perfect season and ability and time to do it. Yeah. Right. It doesn't matter. It's just, this is ideal. This is training time. It's beautiful, right? Yeah. Like when you're at this point in the season and when you're at this place in the league, having those lessons available without a cost is perfect. And we didn't utilize that. He should have been in there the next game, and he wasn't. And Lankinen got lit up, and we lost again. So, it was a lost opportunity for Tolopilo. But there's a bunch of those little decisions where I'm just like, what's going on? But but we're also seeing some real exciting things, like the bro line, right? And we're getting, even that started to get messed with a little bit, in the last 4 games. It wasn't it didn't seem that they, there was like a little shuffle going on in some of the games.
Yeah, Ogren was getting lots of ice time and shuffled all over the place. So
yeah. And it was just like, I get you're still in it to win it. But again, this is a great time to test things out, to get, to get some experience for these guys, to, put things together that you may or may not work, but just to see what can you get to going. If you can find some more gems like the Bro line, if you can find some other guys that just click together, right? Some pairs, then that's awesome. Yeah. Our defense, I mean, they had to play everyone. They don't have any defense left.
Yeah.
So I was happy that everyone got their time there. Buium finally getting some, playoff power play time. I was real excited about seeing that. So, but I mean, those weren't coaching decisions. Those were by necessity.
Yeah. That
was like, hey, we don't have anyone else to put here, so it's going to be these guys. So yeah, I mean, and for me, it was that was cool that they won. Those last few games. I would have almost rather see. I don't want to say losses, because I mean those are still tough, but definitely would have rather see Tolopilo in the net.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to play devil's advocate just for a moment, and I did say, or touch on this on I think the last episode, because I agree with you that Tolopilo needs to be thrown into it, and so I'm going to go back to January 29th. It was like 2 for Tolopilo, 2 for Lankinen, 1 Tolopilo, Lankinen, Tolopilo for 3, Lankinen for 2. So they were alternating up until March 17th, and then Lankinen did 5 straight. I suspect there was an injury, like a little tiny nagging injury, because they were rotating through. And then after he came back, Tolopilo for 1, Lankinen for 2, Tolopilo for 4. Then it was Lankinen, Tolopilo, Lankinen. So there was a good rotation, except for one stretch. So yeah, I don't know. Like while you were talking there, I was Googling Tolopilo injury. Nothing came up. So he was the backup, I think, for all. I did hear Patera's name at one point. I can't remember which game if he did come up for a game in this last stretch of the March-April stretch, probably more closer in March. But that's my guess. I mean, because he did get 4 in a row, right, at that point. So, and then, but Lankinen, holy cow, he played fantastic in a few of those. And if it wasn't for him,
great saves. He's a great goalie.
Oh, if it wasn't for him, we would have got shellacked in whatever that game was that he was in. So he got the win. So we'll just go back and dial back and get to the end of the season, and we can talk about Allvin. We can talk about just sort of the perceptions of what we think, what the takeaways are. So let's just go back. So we left in the last episode. We ended around Seattle, March 14th, Seattle. The next game was a 5-2 win over Florida, which was great. And then there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses in a row, which wasn't as bad as the other losing streak of many more than 6. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Was it 11 or 12? I've erased that from my memory. If it was 11 or 12, just another bad memory in this last, I guess. Do you count 2.5 seasons? Do you go back to the Edmonton series and say, is that 2.5 seasons ago? That's a full, that's the 3 seasons ago now. So, it's been 2 years of misery coming out of the playoffs, with the collapse and implosion of the dressing room, with taking the Oilers losing to the Oilers in Game 7 there. So, 2-3 years now, three full seasons or 2 full seasons of losing and misery. But I mean, I think you're right too, because the amount of bodies that we've had available with injuries. Kane's been in and out of the lineup. We brought in Curtis Douglas, the monster. We need a nickname for him. And then really the kids coming in and out, Sasson and Ratu getting more of a stay into the lineup, and Sasson and really, who was taking his place? It was Höglander, Sasson, maybe one other that was getting bounced in another lineup. But, I think as of April 1st, I mean, you put your usual hat on of like, okay, how bad is this going to be against Colorado? And we win 8-6. I mean, holy cow. I mean, I remember texting you and you said that you weren't available, you weren't watching it live, and you're like, what? Of all the games not to be able to see live and get some enjoyment out of.
Yeah, no, exactly. I had to watch it on the after I already knew everything that was going on for the most part, but I did end up catching like the last, about 8 minutes of the game, and then and then I flipped back and just watched the whole thing again. So it was, I mean, it was fun, but I also think Colorado just didn't really like.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't want to say they didn't care because they were playing, they were trying to win. Yeah. It's not like they, you don't score 6 goals and say you weren't trying to win, right? Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what was going on there. It was who was out that game for them? Let's have a look. Do you know?
I'm going to pull that sheet up right now. I have the Florida sheet up.
I'm just curious if they
Cale Makar and Nicholas Roy. So, I mean, all the big guns were there.
Yeah.
So just Makar was out. And to take the Canucks lightly would not be to be unexpected for basically the best team in the league playing the worst team in the league. But
and like I said, it wasn't like they weren't trying to score and win the game. Right. You don't come out with 6 goals, and I mean, and they came out in the third period like they were pissed, right? Like they were embarrassed. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like they came out down 2 goals, right? 6-4. And
they scored 4 in a row, right? So they got
the end of the second and then 3 in the third. So being down 6-2 to Vancouver probably was something where they're like, what are we doing, guys?
Yeah, totally.
And and then, but I mean, we still got good goals. Like Marcus Pettersson's goal was a good goal. Mm-hmm. Brock Besser's was an empty net, so I'm just kind of like whatever about empty nets.
Yeah, it was a long distance empty netter though, so
yeah,
it was not so bad.
No.
As I'm watching the highlights on NHL or NHL's YouTube channel, they actually have Quebec listed in the upper score. Vancouver versus Quebec.
What?
Yeah. So because they're wearing the Quebec unis.
Yeah.
They put Quebec in the upper score bug.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I did not. Well, that didn't happen on the Sportsnet broadcast, but this was must be the Colorado broadcast. So interesting.
That's super cool. Yeah, I like that.
But from my only takeaway from that point on is that that was kind of like a bit of a tonic for the amount of misery we've suffered. Like what? That was fun. Like, obviously everything is the writing's been on the wall for a long time for this team, but to pull that out and to get a little bit of entertainment and a little bit of lighthearted fun out of the season, I was like, wow, you couldn't have asked much more from a game at that point. So I'm sorry you missed it.
Yeah, the only thing missing out of that game would have been a couple of fights, and that's it. But it was definitely, it was an exciting game, even with Colorado coming back, right? Yeah. And, that I mean, I guess for me that feeling of doubt wasn't there because I already knew the outcome. Yeah. So I didn't have to experience that. But I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Like, you're up 6-2 and all of a sudden they get one in the end of the second. And you're like, okay. And then 14 seconds into the third, they score and you're like, is this what we're doing? Right? Yeah, like totally. 10 minutes later, they pop 2 more in and you're like, okay.
And it's so not to be unexpected. Like, you're like, oh, here we go. Here we go. Right. So, Anyways, that was a pleasant, probably the most pleasant game of the season for me. So,
yeah, it was a good one, definitely.
all right. Well, okay, so next, so that's April 1st. It's, the 19th. The games went to the 16th. So let's just quickly kind of skim through this. But what I wanted to ask you, actually, I'm going to go back in time to the trade deadline and the Connor Garland. And I purposely have not watched it, but Connor Garland setting whatever that Columbus Blue Jacket record for goals consecutive for a debuting Blue Jacket. I want to pull that up for a second, but I wanted to get your thoughts on the Garland in particular. We covered it a little bit, but I wanted to. I haven't even watched it.
I haven't either. When was it?
Pull it up. So he got the trade deadline. So let's go NHL trade deadline. I think it was March 9th. Or no, sorry, the 6th, March 6th trade deadline.
But when was his game?
So he got traded and he scored. So they traded him on March 6th, right on the deadline. So if you go to Columbus's games, okay, so the next game after the trade deadline was March 7th. So March 7th versus Utah. So March 7th.
No, he didn't have any goals in that one.
He didn't score in that one? So he scored.
You guys had 4 goals and none of them were him.
What was that? What was that noise on social media then? Let's go here.
Maybe it was the next day or like the next game.
Maybe he didn't play that game. Maybe it was too close to this. Okay, so their next game was
LA.
March 9th.
Against LA, it was a loss.
Okay, did he score in that game? Do you see on the score sheet here?
He got 2 goals.
Oh, he got 2 goals. Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
And they still lost.
Yeah, they hit my feed, and I'm like, it just figures, right? Like, just figures that we trade him, and he's going to go on fire. And I also, in my long-term pool, dumped Garland, not thinking he was going to be in the playoffs, as one of my possible picks to. We were allowed to enter 10 of our roster in our hockey pool.
No, in his last 5 games, he got nothing.
Yeah, and that's what I was also kind of spying on. He set some sort of record. Oh my gosh. I went to the YouTube and it was like overtime highlights. I'm like, where's the rest of the highlights? Okay, let's see here. I just wanted to see how he's playing. And then the fact that he cooled off makes me feel better. No offense to Mr. Garland, but like that's kind of the last thing you kind of want to see is you trade your guy and then he set some record for his new club.
No, he didn't set any records, but he did do back-to-back multi-point games.
Okay. All right. Then that's been blown out of proportion
but no records
by me because it hit my feed. It was a Columbus Blue Jacket social media thing and like, they were pumping the tires pretty hard there. Okay, so then, but the fact that he tailed off, I'm like, okay, well.
Oh, actually, it's 2 goal games in consecutive games, and that was a record for his career. So it's the first time in his career he's had 2 goals back-to-back games. That's what it was. And
for the Blue Jackets record, it was 4 goals in the shortest amount of games by a new Blue Jacket. Something like that. Anyways, like whatever. Okay, so it's not as bad as I thought. So I can kind of move past that because I was going to mention that in the last episode and I kind of forgot about it as we were trying to catch up. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask you about was the next game for us after the Colorado game was the dreaded Minnesota Wild. Now, what was your thoughts on Quinn Hughes' comments when he was asked about, hey, what's it going to be like facing your former teammates? Did you catch his comment?
Is that the one where it was just kind of like, whatever? Like it was, basically it was just like, the type of thing a big brother would say about having to play his much younger brother in a game of shinny.
It was a little different in the fact that he goes, I don't really know the guys over there anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he kind of like did tweedledum on the answer. He's like, well, I don't know. Like it was not as bad as the Bo Horvat comment leaving Vancouver, but it was definitely in the same ballpark. Like it was a different sport, same ballpark. of like, as your former captain of
I
the
don't know
club.
those guys over there.
I really don't know. I'm just taking it game by game, day by day. There's been a lot happening. And, in talking to, like kind of getting impressions when it happened was like, I was, it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. And I don't know. Do you want to pull it up? Do you want to see if you can pull it up?
Sure.
Or no? Yeah. Quinn Hughes on Facing Canucks, like one of the YouTube channels, Glovey McLovin has it. Pull it up.
Yeah, I got it.
So just give it a listen for a second and just
listen to ads first.
So what do you think? I mean,
yeah. Honestly, he's probably, I would say that he's like compartmentalizing you don't want your emotions to get involved when you're playing hockey. So if you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to miss those guys and blah, blah, blah. And you start thinking about it, even if you're just talking about it. But if you blow it off, right, out loud, you can blow it off internally, right? So if someone's like, hey, what do you think? And you're like, you know what? I'm just here to play my game. And I mean, I don't even know a lot of those guys over there anymore. There's only 2 or 3 that I know, and that's it. You're going to be able to dismiss that on the ice as well. And you're going to just be like, you're not going to, it's not going to be, hey, there's my buddy, or there's a guy I played with for 6 years, right? Even if it is, you're just like, there's the other guys. So, and that's, hockey players always do that, right? They try to make it that, like, even if they're playing their brothers, as he said, or their best friend, they're still going to go hard and try to beat them. So I think that was just, I don't know. I don't think it was a shot at anyone. I think, if anything, that was just sort of more him setting his mindset for things. That's all.
Like, my takeaway is like that was kind of horrible PR for himself. Like, I don't think that, for,
well, was it though?
Yeah, because
because Minnesota's probably looking at that going, yeah, and that's who he's PRing to right now. Do you think, like?
Well, I mean, not even like, I had a good time there. There's a few guys, of course, I'll miss it. There was no good PR. There wasn't even good PR for himself. Like, even to make light of it, or even like, because he never had a chance to talk to the fans, really. Did you ever see anything that he said, like, thanks to, a lot of guys will at least do that brief iota of like, hey, I had a great time there. It was a great city. Love the weather. Great fans. Not even the great fans comment, like just the generic token comments, really. And I think I expected more, and I took it as a bit of a I took it negatively, for sure. Okay. And only for the fact that you were the captain, and that it wasn't like contract negotiations failed. It wasn't like Bo Horvat's like, well, that team, whatever, it's way nicer over here. He was miffed, right? Like, Quinn Hughes got his way. He got what he wanted. Like, he wanted out, right? Mm-hmm. We got a serviceable return for him. I just think that there was an opportunity to kind of talk to the fans, and he just looked, in my mind, he looked a little self-absorbed, a little like it was all about him. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, he was saying all the things that you like. I agree with you. Like, oh, it's like facing my brothers or whatever, but I don't know most of the guys over there. Like, no, all the guys except for 3, right? Like, there was no difference. Like, who came in to replace him? Like, Zeev took his spot on the blue line, but he played with every other blue liner there. He played with every forward. Like, it was disingenuous, and it was inaccurate. And so I think that maybe, you don't think about it, even warm-ups in the game time, whatever. I think there's a load of crap, to be perfectly honest. I had other opinions come to me as like, when I had mentioned it, and like, yeah, I don't think it looked good on him, but it also may have been a little bit revealing about who he is, and like I thought him as a super cerebral type player, like watching all the games all the time, reading books all the time. And that was a very non-cerebral answer. It was actually the lowest form of jock answer you could do by not actually answering it.
Yeah.
Like actually the brother answer was actually kind of good and clever, but he didn't, like no one pressed him in the media there. But I'm sure if you asked Dan Murphy or whoever else was in the room, they're like, that's probably way less than we wanted to hear. Not even a good soundbite. There wasn't even a good soundbite in there to even say thanks to the team, thanks to my teammates, thanks to the fans. Like, oh, it is what it is kind of thing. It was like a Todd Bertuzzi, except Todd Bertuzzi, really didn't give an F. But I expected more out of Quinn Hughes, especially as the captain, and leaving and one last like, hey, I know the whole situation kind of sucks and blah, blah, blah. Like there was just no empathy. It was just very clunky, very jock, and very safe, obviously. Like it was a very safe answer. There's nothing you could pick on the fact that he didn't say much.
Yeah.
And I think that's what bothers me is that he could have acknowledged something and he just he washed his hands of the whole thing. And just what can you do? Oh, what can you do? Like you're the greatest defenseman on the planet. We drafted you. You grew up in front of our eyes, and that's what you got to say? Like really? Oh my gosh! Like honestly, before that, I thought, well, I'm going to go buy a Quinn Hughes jersey at a discount, and now I will never have a Quinn Hughes jersey, like ever. Like I'm pretty PO'd at his PR. Let's put it that way. So okay. Because I think I had to check in. I was talking to my brother about it and he said some comments, and I'm not going to say it here. I'll let him speak to that if he's we ever have the chance to that. But and it was the same kind of ballpark of what my assessment was but a different take. But it was the same. He's like, oh, and he had a very definite negative opinion about what he said. So I kind of checked in on that. I didn't check in on you with that because it's been, we have our chance here on the podcast to do that. But I am actually kind of cheesed off at his comments personally as a Canuck fan. So
okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
But I was just hoping for more, and didn't really get it. We ended up losing that game. I think he had a good game too there. The Quinn Hughes love affair was a real thing for most Canuck fans, right? Like he won hearts, he won the minds and hearts of many, many fans, and no one kind of got their kind of got their due. Due is not the right word, but they kind of didn't get a nice send off. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So, Minnesota, Utah. Oh, that Utah game was kind of gross. 7-4. The Vegas game, to be expected. Vegas is Vegas. Vegas is tuning up for the playoffs. At this point, we're at April 7th. LA. Lose 4-1 there, and then we win 3 in a row. So I mean, just general impressions of we went on a 3-game winning streak. Did we have a 3-game winning streak before that? Let me just
we did.
We had a 4-game winning streak and a 3-game at the beginning of the season. So sad but true. But this team found some fun and found some chemistry as of April 1st, and. At least some of those games were entertaining. So the San Jose game played pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, the LA game was fun.
One thing for me is Boeser and DeBrusk really turning that corner and at least getting 20 goals each. I'm very pleased about that.
Yeah, me too. Very happy that, especially with Boeser, I was so happy that he sort of got that monkey off his back and really just started producing the last, 10. Yeah, I'd have to check the stats, but last 10 games for him, I think.
Yeah, let's pull up his game log here.
We're really good, but
if only for the fact that they get to have on their hockey card 20 goals on the season, right? So they both got more than 20. And I am very pleased about that. I just don't like the negative chatter about, DeBrusk has got a sweetheart of a contract. And so I will never complain about Jake DeBrusk. Mm-hmm. He's a streaky guy. Let's see here. Boeser, no points in the last game, but 1, 2 points, then none, then 1, then none, then 1, then 0. He had 4 points in the Colorado game, then 1, then 1, then 0, then 1, then 1. So since about, since I'll say end of January 21st, he's been pretty darn consistent. Mm-hmm. And so good on him. I love it. And would you agree that he looks faster than he has in a long time?
Yeah, he looks faster. He looks like he's enjoying the game. Yeah. He looks like he's playing with people who can find him. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a combination of that, and I think that's not just on him, but I think that he's definitely, like I said, he's looking faster out there, and when he gets to play with the bro line, that whole line, the way they pass, the way they move the puck, they look a lot faster than they actually are. Yeah, and I think we've already talked about this in past episodes, but they just the way they can move the puck to each other and get it up the ice, it sure makes them look a lot faster than they actually are. Yeah, and and the same with Brock. He looks great. Last 5 games he got 4 points. Good for him. No, we need to see that, right? Yeah.
And he needed it, like you said. He has he doesn't smile very much, but he does have a very happier disposition, and cracking that 20 goal mark for him. 22 goals, that's awesome. He's climbing the Canucks ladder. I wish the Boeser of 3 years ago, even though he was a bit slower, the pace that he was on was
73 points 3 years ago.
So, but the whole team
40 goals. Then. Yeah.
He was very happy for him, happy for us, because man, the last part of the season with this Boeser feels like what Boeser could have been the whole time without those injuries in his first year, when he got just crushed in the open gate at the bench, and he got very unlucky, and he was not the speediest person coming into the league. You watch his college highlights, and it's like he looks like the Boeser now, and so. He before those injuries and really hampering his speed, because he over the years he's looked like he's been laboring with any sort of his maximum quickness, but it feels like he's reached back very close to whatever his peak speed is. So that's been awesome. Same for Jake DeBrusk. I mean, wow, what a bit of a turn of a corner for him, and he's streaky. But, it's been fun to watch him as well. Like 20 goals. How many did you get on the power play? Like 17 on the power play? I'm just going to pull him up here.
I think something like that. Yeah, he's got like almost all of them on the power play.
It's crazy. So, pleased for that. Anybody else that's sort of... on
the forwards?
Just anybody, like in general. So now, we'll carry on to, like, they win against San Jose. We win against Anaheim in overtime. We win against LA in overtime. I was at that game. I actually got the last high five in the building from Andrzej Kopitar.
Retired.
Yeah, I thought it was his last game, but he played another game in Calgary. And anyways, I spent a couple bucks on those seats. Great seats, though. I really love sitting that close to the bench, and I really wanted to see Drew Doughty and Kopitar for his last game. It was a treat to watch him that close, and just kind of watch the little habits in between and whatnot. So, but then the stinker closing up the season against Edmonton. But
I think that was to be expected. I think Edmonton was like,
They hadn't secured the spot.
They wanted to change. Yeah, they wanted to change their spot.
Yeah, because they were flirting with wild card. That's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, McDavid talking about the pillow fight all year, and that's the, you know, it comes down to the last game of the season. Like, holy, yeah, that's a fantastic line. Like, amazing.
Yeah, pillow fight.
Yeah,
the Pacific and its pillow fight.
Yeah, totally.
I enjoyed, even though it wasn't it wasn't a super productive 40 or 45 games for Zeev Buium.
Yeah.
Finishing with like 12 points. But I did enjoy getting to watch him play. He is going to be a very good defenseman. He's got a decent size. He's going to bulk up a little bit more. I don't think he's ever had an injury yet, which, let me see something, which, is,
this is his rookie year, right? Are you talking about pre-NHL or are you talking about NHL or?
Oh, no, I mean, yeah, pre-NHL.
Yeah.
Let me double check that though, because that's something I heard and I should follow up on that. But yeah, if that's the case, like to be able to play that style of D and not have, you did have the face injury, but to be honest, a facial injury is not going to, unless it's like a Malhotra type injury.
Yeah,
it's not really going to impede your game, right?
Yeah,
you could break your jaw and your nose 1,000 times, and you might be drinking through a straw. But he did have, let's see, he had an upper body injury, but it was listed as upper body. It was day to day and it was short term. There was no major absence back in September.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's it. That's all.
Well, I mean, that's
so. And the upper body injury, that could be like the flu for all we know. The way they do the upper and lower body stuff.
Yeah.
Like that could just be he had the flu, right?
Yeah. Funny.
But that's it. Like he has not had any other sort of injuries, major injuries, which is good. And he looks really good out there, really strong on his feet. He sees the ice well. He's a smart player. I still will stand by, defenseman not being a real, I don't say real, but a tendered defenseman until they're about, 25, 27 in that range.
Yeah. Totally.
So this kid's playing like honestly, he's playing like a 25-year-old would, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, in 2 years, he's going to be awesome. And he's 20.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what he can do over the next 2-3 years.
Yep.
Because if we do things right, if they hire me as a GM and
awesome
and we do things right, in 4 years, he's going to be just starting his prime. And we're going to have a whole bunch of players that are on that cusp that they're just starting their best seasons.
Yep.
And this is going to be a team that can contend if I do everything right.
Yeah, hence the salary dumping of the Garlands and et cetera, et cetera. Did you agree with the team player awards? So best defenseman, most exciting player, unsung hero. Did you agree with them?
I didn't even pay attention to those. Let me take a look at them.
You didn't cast your vote. I
cast my vote. I didn't see who won.
So best defenseman was Filip Hronek. I mean, I don't think there's much choice around that. He's been awesome all year, with and without Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
I fully agree with that.
Yep.
Zeev got most exciting player.
Ooh, I like that.
That would have been your choice?
Yep. I think I voted for that. So
There you go. I did as well. I don't think we had a ton of choice of really exciting players. I mean,
everyone else is like good and it's good to watch and fun to watch. And
like,
stuff,
who do you think the second runner-up was? Who's the runner-up for that award in your mind? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for me, it's like, well, Zeev with his little, his little jukes and his little moves. Like, wow, that's exciting. That's amazing.
Like Ogren, maybe. If you're talking,
I would even go Sasson. Like his speed,
Sasson. Yeah.
Like it wasn't, and that's like for playing a third of the season or whatever he played.
Yeah.
Probably half or 2/3. Yeah. He had lots of flashes and dashes, right?
Maybe Wielander.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Again, it wasn't like he was super exciting to watch, right?
Totally.
Like, so he had solid games. He played well, but it's not like you weren't sitting there going, "Oh yeah," right?
Like Zeev did like
that.
what 15, 20 great jukes over his time. Like you're like, whoa, okay, and that was enough. That was enough to get the most exciting player. So I think there was a consensus, but I don't even know who the second player would have been considered for. Like honestly,
there's maybe three guys, but I don't even think they're. I would have put them like tied, for fourth.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
Totally. All right. So Unsung Hero Award. So who did you vote for Unsung Hero?
For Unsung Hero, I voted for O'Connor.
Did you really? Okay. Because I voted for Carlson.
Yeah.
And O'Connor won, and he did a great job. And I would only say that unsung is that he almost like led the team in goals. So is that really unsung?
Yeah, but he did so in such a quiet way.
Totally.
And there wasn't a lot of like attention on him. Right. So like for me, the unsung part was like this guy was a top producer in the game.
Yeah.
He was doing awesome, but no one really talked about him.
Yeah.
He was the O and the bro line, and that was it. Like, it wasn't like people weren't talking about him consistently every day or whatever. Carlson was the same thing, right? No, people weren't really talking about him. He was just that quiet guy and that could, do it that needed to be done at center, and he had solid games. I think if you're looking for consistency, like if Unsung Hero included consistency, right? I probably would have gone Carlson. Carlson is a lot more consistent in how he plays and what he does on the ice. Yeah. And he's sort of like, again, he's a quiet player who's just sort of there, but he didn't generate hero status, if you will.
No, not at all.
So, and that's why like O'Connor was like, he basically was a hero, and he was so yeah. Anyway, that's why I picked him. But yes,
yeah. Carlson had 15 goals, so he wasn't even far off the mark, right? Yeah. 35 points only, but for me, the unsung hero has always been the Gary Volks, the Yannick Hansen, the Niels Höglander if he's having a good year, way down the lineup, right? Third liner who really digs in every shift. And, I don't think Carlson didn't ever have a bad game. And he created something out of nothing. And O'Connor, he would have been like my second vote for sure. But I just think that the fact that, he was leading the team for goals for almost the entire season, Drew O'Connor, that he got talked about. And that's why I don't think it was necessarily unsung. So
I got you. He was spoken about, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like Carlson where he's just sort of in the background. Yeah, I can see your point.
Yeah. And I like that because of the Gary Volks and the Yannick Hansens and even Alex Burrows before he became the preeminent Alex Burrows, he that mold of work hard every shift, dig in really hard and no accolades because no one notices it if you're not scoring, right? So, I'll say that the majority of people won't notice if he doesn't get on the stat sheet, and that's my definition of unsung hero.
Okay.
Well, Pettersson, PD got leading scorer with 49 points.
No. Let me double check that. I thought Miller had more points.
What's that for Miller? Oh, I see. Nice. So the team award, if JT Miller was playing, would he have? How many points did Miller have this year?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
Did he get more than 49? Let's see.
I don't know.
53. He played 68 games though. How many games did PD play?
74.
Yeah. JT Miller. I mean, what a debacle. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, and my brother brought this up, he goes, Quinn Hughes wrecked 3 franchises. He wrecked the Canucks. He wrecked the Rangers. Did he wreck Minnesota? No, New Jersey. New Jersey is the third team that he wrecked. Yeah. It's a very interesting observation that one player has literally ripple affected through 3 franchises like that.
Yeah.
The backlash of New Jersey not getting Quinn Hughes really kind of cascaded into negative for them at that point in their season, and it cost the GM his job, I think. Mm-hmm. Not being able to pull that out, but that's a good debate for another day. Mm-hmm. Let's wrap up these team awards, and then of note, Boeser got the 3 stars award for the most
3 stars.
Yeah, most stars, and the Daniel and Henrik Sedin Community Award.
Yeah, he does a lot in the community.
Because
that's why people love him.
And then most valuable player, MVP of the team was, who'd you vote for?
Most valuable player, I think I gave to Hronek.
Yeah, and he won it. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Lankinen had his part, but without Hronek, without Lankinen, I mean, honestly, without O'Connor, I'm not saying O'Connor is an MVP, but holy cow, for that consistency and for the chipping in for the necessary offense. I mean, for Drew O'Connor to get, did he get 17 goals? O'Connor. Yeah, he got 17. So, it was, he scored more than Petey, 2 more. So anyways, of that variety, I mean, Hronek was clearly the MVP. I would say maybe Lankinen behind him, but I think Hronek ultimately meant more to the team. I mean, I don't know. That's a tough one, but I think it was the right choice for sure.
Yeah. I think, I mean, between his... I think he was essential for development of players like Zeev Buium. And some of those other younger guys, right? So, because I think, as much as I was yelling, put Zeev Buium with Hronek, they were sticking some of those other younger guys with him, and then sometimes they'd stick like Marcus Pettersson with him, which I was like, what are you doing? But he got to play with Wielander, with Mancini, with POJ. He got to play with pretty much everyone on the defensive core. Yeah. And I think there's something to say about that. So, when you're using a player to show everyone else how to play, that pretty much to me means like he's your most valuable player, right?
Yeah. And honestly, like that transcends to the like captain talk and captain material.
Did you see the interview about him when he got asked about being the captain?
No, I missed that. Was that at end of the season, or when was that?
End of the season.
I did not see that. Was it in the press conference or no?
Yeah, I was in the press conference. So he said something along the lines of like, yeah, I mean, it would be an honor, but I'm not really thinking about it at all. And then I'd like something like along the lines of like, I'd have to I'd have to talk more with you guys, or
yeah, totally.
Or something like that. It was pretty funny. It was just
I didn't realize at the time that he had some remarkable streak of not talking to the media his entire time up until that point, which was probably what 4 months ago, 5 months ago, maybe at the Quinn Hughes deal, and I had no idea, zero idea, and I think it's pretty hilarious, But then, like, his on ice leadership is what you want, like it's lead by example, play by example, and then the fact that you don't want to talk to the media. I mean, that's interesting, but he's the kind of guy you want.
Yep. I am comfortable not going with another captain right now.
Yeah. Who's your pick then? If it's not Hronek, who would you?
I don't have one. No captain.
Okay.
I don't. Three assistants, 4 assistants.
Do you think that Coots is up to the plate when he finally arrives?
Coots?
Yeah. He's been labeled as captain material when he got drafted. He said, "This is the future captain." Someone even said on draft day, "This is the future captain of the Vancouver Canucks." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" So the chatter is already there.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's already out there. But I agree with you. I don't think there should be a captain. If it's not Hronek, and if it's not Boeser, and Boeser only because he's, I think, just long serving and just, he's a steady Eddie as far as that goes, as far as, personality and effort. It's very rare you can say Boeser didn't have or Boeser had a bad game because he didn't try. Like, he always looks like he's trying, right? So anyways, but I don't know. Like, that's the chatter out there. So did you find anything? I heard you typing there. So did you find anything about Coots?
No, I didn't see anything.
Okay. Well, it's not the chatter about like in sort of official channels, if that's the right thing. Yeah. Many scouts and analysts have said that. It's been more than 3 times that I've heard that from different people. So
yeah, a lot of people are comparing him to like Bo Horvat style of play and personality and everything, and and Horvat was a captain, so it would make sense to me that people can see him in that same light.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion we don't need a captain right now. There's no rush for it. I'd be happy going the next year, 2 years without a captain, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then just see who in like year 3 really comes in and is that person, that glue guy, as I've said all season, that can pull and hold that team together and drag them kicking and screaming through, being down a couple of goals to recovering and winning, because that's what we're going to need, right?
Yeah.
So if that's Coots, awesome. If it's someone else that we bring into the team over the course of the next couple of years, or one of these other guys steps up, and maybe Hronek does step up and go, you know what, I can do this, and drags everyone with him, and picks up the team on his shoulder and carries them.
Yeah.
Awesome. But I don't think that is something that needs to be focused on right now. I don't see a benefit. No. There's no gain by just throwing a C on someone right now.
Yeah. And I agree with that.
There's nothing that we gain from that. It gets that person more attention. I would almost even argue that, I think I said it when it happened, I didn't think Quinn Hughes should be the captain, to be honest.
Yep.
I didn't think that he had that personality, that style, that he should be the captain.
Do you think if Quinn Hughes was not the captain that we would have such a bad fallout with Petey and Miller?
Don't know. It'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, in what I said earlier about him, like just the sort of what he revealed his personality is, I think that he was of zero use in the PD Miller drama.
Yep.
Like absolutely, literally useless, because he wouldn't have said anything. He would have talked quietly to Miller. It would have been a miracle if he said anything to Petey, but it wouldn't have been as a captain. It would have been this quiet, meek little, Yeah.
Hey, listen, hey, like, go easy on him.
Like, oh yeah, I don't know. Like maybe.
No, I'm not
like
going to go easy on him. Oh, okay, but just try to.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. It's
wishy-washy. I don't. To be honest, I would have rather, with all due respect, we know the type of player that Miller is and what he can bring and what they were doing at the time. I would have much rather see Horvat stay on.
Yeah.
And be the captain. Here's a guy that was taught and trained by the Twins.
Yep.
He was a decent leader and captain. He had no problems coming out after every game and talking.
Yeah.
And he held people accountable. So, yeah, I kind of like, part of me wishes I could, maybe I'll do an AI thing, go back in time and say, Brock Boeser, Bo Horvat trade doesn't happen. Continue forward with that timeline now, right?
Yeah, I would love to know that scenario. It was like an EA hockey thing. Yeah, and if you recall, when we talked in those episodes way back, as we were flirting with the idea of this podcast, at the time, no one, you couldn't give away Miller or Boeser. There was no choice other than to get rid of Horvat, and it's like the amount of topsy-turvy that we've had to endure since then, since the Miller signing his long-term deal, Boeser in a bit of a slump then. I remember when we recorded, in editing that, it's like, well, it's interesting. And that's what I love about this process of recording the podcast. It's like we get to timestamp our opinions and timestamp what's happening. But, it's easy to go back there. But that scenario of like, we had no choice. He was the only viable asset to move. You couldn't have given away Miller and Boeser together to get a decent return. Nobody wanted them because everyone had the chance to get them and nobody wanted them.
And I think if we had kept Horvat, what was he getting paid with the Islanders? Like 8.5?
Yeah, it's 8. It was really close.
That may have stopped the ability of picking up Hronek.
Okay, maybe.
I don't know. I'd have to run numbers.
Miller got the same contract though, right? So it was the rub was like it's either Miller or Horvat, because they're both due about $8 million.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but
maybe. I don't know.
So, just quickly back to the Coots thing. I just Googled Coots' leadership abilities, and it said the AI summary is that it's his leadership was a key reason he was selected 15th overall by the Canucks. Mm-hmm. That's on NHL.com. He was the youngest. Where is it here? He's the youngest captain in the WHL as of last year. Mm-hmm. He was the captain of the under 18 IIHF World Championship that won the gold medal, and. Like Hockey News, I think it's Allvin's quote. Allvin, rest in peace. Not really, but he was described as captain material and noted for character and ability to drive the bus. Anyways, I think that if you're going to do Vegas odds on it, I think that just like the Canucks being able to pick first overall is 25%, I think it would be a 25% safe bet to say that Coots is the next captain of the Canucks.
We'll see.
That sort of in the background.
I mean, here's the thing. We have a new GM, right?
Yeah.
New GM's gonna want to do things their way, put their stamp on things, and might not. Coots is sort of the old regime's pick, and you never know what they might do. They might turn around and go, "Hey, there's the guy I want."
Yeah. So as far as
I'll give up Coots to get him, type thing.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Coots wasn't my pick. I wouldn't have picked him 15th. Sure. I would have done someone else.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think this is where we need to go. This is the direction we need to go. And I'm willing to give Coots up to get that guy. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting when the new GM comes in, because typically when a GM comes in, they try to leave, try to make their mark, right? They come in, they go, here's what I'm doing. This is what I see for this team, right? This is the future I see. Yeah. And that means I'm doing this, this, and this, right? And they start off with a big, normally, they start off with a big bang. They do whatever they got to do, and they, fire the coach, trade a couple of players, and now we're heading towards the direction that I want this team to be in. So
yeah, it's interesting.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with those picks that the other GM made, right?
Yeah. So you mentioned it. I mean, so new GM. So Patrick Allvin has been shown the door. Mm-hmm. What is your take on all that? When you heard the news, what was your reaction?
To be honest, I was kind of like, I wasn't surprised, but I think, like, what's Rutherford doing? Like, he's sitting there going, this wasn't my fault.
Right.
But then he says things like, well, I took over the Quinn Hughes trade.
Oh my God. Really?
So yeah, like apparently he was the one that stick handled the Quinn Hughes trade. So I'm like, how can you say that? I don't know. I think honestly, here, if I had to give you my reading the tea leaves, I think you're going to see a GM come in who is still following along the line of what Rutherford wants to do. And they're not going to be strong, because a strong GM would turn around and basically tell Rutherford where to go. They would say, hey, go get me a practice facility. Go focus on where you're spending your big money. Fuck off. Let me run this team. But when he's already showing evidence of jumping in and doing GM duties for Allvin,
yeah,
you think that he's not going to be doing that for the next guy he brings in? I don't think we're going to get someone that we deserve as the next GM. I think we're going to get a transitional GM. And I think it's going to be the GM that's here for the next 2 years. And then Rutherford's gone. That GM's gone. New people come in and make the final touches to get us to the playoffs. That's my prediction.
Playoffs, that's a long way away.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Rutherford's been running the show the whole time. That's been my impression. That's been my take. That's been my opinion. And Allvin seemed like a nice guy, but I never got the sense like everything felt like a rehearsal for like, hey, when you really are the GM, and it happened a couple times in like when he went to the press and goes, I did this and I did that. And like, doesn't really feel like that, but whatever it does. It's a moot point now. Mm-hmm. But I think that, we're not going to see real, I don't know. Like I was to say, we're not going to see real change until Rutherford's gone, but and it depends what the change is, right? Is change that you just need Rutherford gone, or is it change that you actually need some actual effective moves that make a difference, right? Some needle moving moves. Now, Quinn Hughes forcing a trade, like even that alone, that the fact that they knew coming into this year that Quinn Hughes was not going to re-sign, like they should all be gone. Yep. Like everybody. Like that includes all the assistant GMs.
Yep.
Like everyone, like start over. Like start right over. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, it's not personal. It's all business at this point. And you had to trade away the best defenseman in the world.
You failed.
And you kind of did okay, but you also you started doing things on the premise that he was staying. At least that's what was happening in the public eye. Oh, Quinn Hughes say, so in reality, you didn't get Malhotra and you got Foote to please Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
Maybe trading Hronek was on the table and you didn't do it because you wanted to please Quinn Hughes.
Yep.
Like there was these cascading decisions, and that's just two. I'm actually hadn't thought about it in a while, but there was many things that happened to please Quinn Hughes, but they knew in the summer that he was not going to re-sign. So at that point, like, you've got to do it differently. Like, I mean, I'm crushed that Quinn Hughes is not a Canuck. Like, I can't believe it. We got some good Canuck luck for a change, of the Pavel Bure variety, of the Marcus Naslund variety. We drafted him 7th, and he became the best defenseman in the world. Like, and we had to turf it. But they acted, I wanted to say integrity, but they acted... there's a word I'm trying to think of it. Like, it wasn't honest. They weren't honest about it. And for that alone, I think that the Canucks fan base deserves a guillotine. Like, we deserve to pull the rope on a guillotine. Yep. Now, if he stays and he can fix it, like, that remains to be seen. But I don't know. For almost, I would say it was at least 1 year Rutherford, he arrived, did not do a single thing. Yep. Right? It was around the 18-month mark, and he's like, oh, he finally did something. And, you look at his track record. He's got 2 Stanley Cups. Is it 2 or 3? But I feel my memory feels that he inherited a pretty decent Carolina team, and he only brought in Mark Recchi and Matt Cullen at the end, at the trade deadline, to bolster a really strong Carolina squad. And then you go to Pittsburgh, you inherit a Sidney Crosby team, and you kind of just bolster around the fringes. Like, it's kind of the knock against Mike Gillis at that point, where, like, Mike Gillis, when he came here in 2009 or where he did, I can't remember what year, but he inherited a great team. And, he got lucky on the Ehrhoff deal. But the jury is out, in my mind, on Rutherford, if he's actually a really, really a depth quality, sneaky, smart GM where he can pull out. How do you rebuild when things are bad? And it's the same as Mike Gillis. The jury, like, I think Mike Gillis deserves another chance, whether it's in Toronto or even here. I'm not a Mike Gillis fan, and I've said this to in my chats and texts to people. Like, I'm not a Mike Gillis fan, but I'm a fan of how he tries to innovate. I don't think it quite worked here, but the intention was good. But it's the same. How are these GMs in the Rutherford and Mike Gillis, and then we can talk about maybe some other candidates, how are they with a bottom feeder, basement dwelling team, right? There's no track record for that, because Rutherford got 2 good teams and won 3 cups. Gillis got a great team, got a sweetheart of a deal for Christian Ehrhoff from San Jose because it was a salary dump, and pushed us to uber elite because we had 3 excellent puck moving defensemen at that point. So, I'm not convinced that Rutherford it should stay, and I don't think that Allvin was doing anything of his own accord, especially as a rookie GM. A rookie GM in this market, and they inherited a pretty decent team at the time, a slight retool, because that's all they were allowed to do. And then even what Rutherford was saying about, I'm not going to listen to what ownership says. I'm going to do what I want. Well, I feel there was a couple of moments in this last tenure of him, or in his tenure, where it's like, wow, that's a medium move. That's a mediocre move. Anyways, so I think that Allvin really was a spokesperson. I don't think that I'm a little surprised, because the chatter has been for the last week that even Allvin was telling friends that he's not coming back. And that hit the rumor mill and finally was made official, in the last couple of days. But I don't know.
No, I think you're right about a whole bunch of stuff there. Some of the things that they tried to do to keep Hughes, even though they knew he was going, extending, Demko, Garland, Boeser, right?
Oh, yeah.
Those are all really good trade pieces before they gave them like these huge extensions.
Yeah, totally.
And basically made them extremely difficult to move.
Yeah.
But it's like, why did we do that then? Like, you knew he was not going to stay.
Right.
Did you think that, signing his two best friends on extensions was going to make him stay?
That's what I thought. That's exactly what I thought. So,
but you didn't know that he was not planning on staying.
Right.
So if you knew he was not planning on staying, then would you have looked at those extensions in a different light? Would you have been like, hold on, why are you bothering?
Yeah, totally.
Like, if anything, you should be looking at a bundle deal. Go, hey, we'll give you Garland and Quinn Hughes, and we get 6 of your prospects, and 4 picks, right?
Right, 100%.
You could have done a much bigger trade, knowing that he didn't want to stay. But they tried to do everything to keep him.
If you were to report card just that alone, if you were to report card that's an F.
Yep.
Like that's a D minus an F right away.
Yep.
There is no excuse for that. And I had forgotten about that. It's too much has happened, but exactly right. I 1,000% agree. You don't start signing all these extensions. It's like, it's to keep Quinn happy. I mean, I don't know how many times I said that. Mm-hmm. Like in your mind, like, that's good. Keep Quinn happy. Keep Quinn happy. And how many times the media said it, and the fans on X and whatever. Like, that alone deserves a guillotine chop. Like, for sure.
Yep. Yeah, you knew he wasn't staying. So why were you trying to do all these things, right?
Like, I haven't watched the press conferences. Like it's in some ways I like saving it and sort of having a bit of distance from it. But I almost need to watch Rutherford's comments on that, and to actually hear what how if he was actually pressed on that. And the reporter should have pressed him on that for sure. Mm-hmm. Like if you knew Quinn was like, why? What was this? And just to hear the answers and to watch the body language.
I don't think anyone's asked anything about it, to be honest. Not that I've seen.
Oh, they need to, because
they ask all the wrong questions. They ask the stupid and annoying questions.
Yeah, so we'll do that. Maybe we'll do that for the next episode, where we'll have it
get media passes.
Well, I think you can apply as bloggers at some point, right? So, I'm a Canucks fanboy, and it would be hard asking those questions. And I'm sure that, I've been in and around, with my time at Sportsnet behind the scenes, it was only in the production truck, but you get a little bit of access. I can see people, they're trying to be buddy and trying to keep their good relationship with those that matter inside the current regime. It's hard to ask those questions. There was a couple of reporters I think on Halford and Brock.
It's a legit question.
It is. It's a serious journalism question.
Let's see. Yes, he was asked directly about his strategy during Quinn Hughes. Let's see what this is. April 17th.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
He says, some people thought that Quinn left here because the team wasn't any good. He was leaving anyways, okay?
Which is kind of damning. Like, it's like you just like poured cement on your own coffin.
He says, the best example I can give you is Kachuk. Kachuk wanted to go back to the States. He was in Calgary. He wanted to go. So he went.
But it doesn't excuse the extensions, though, right? Like, it doesn't like.
Oh, I know. But why did he do everything then?
So no one like signing two of his best friends who are already in the team, and then why do that? Like, I think you're bundling.
So no one asked. No one followed up to that. They're like, tell us what what was your reasonings for the Quinn Hughes? And that was his answer, and no one followed up on anything.
Yeah, that's a completely valid question, and I actually had buried that deep in my brain, but I had thought those same things, and good for you for bringing that up, because it's 100% valid. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, I still want to know the rationale on the Demko extension, the Garland extension. The Garland deal was a good deal. Boeser is a serviceable. It's a decent deal. It's not a fantastic deal.
Yeah, but again, if you're knowing that Quinn Hughes is leaving,
right,
having the deal that that was already on the table, and then allowing the team you're sending them to turn around and go, yeah, we'll do an extension. Yeah. Let us figure something out with you.
Yeah, totally.
And that would have been worth something too, right? Like, hey, look what you're getting him for. Yep. You get to figure out his contract next. Like, you guys can, this is going to fit for you. So give us, what he would have been worth.
Yeah.
You think he's worth $8 million a year? Okay, well then let's talk about something that would reflect that, right? And they're going to down, Canucks will overshoot and the other team will undershoot. But we could have got a lot. I think we could have got a lot more if we'd bundled Hughes, Gardner, or Hughes and Boeser, or whatever. Hughes, Gardner, and Thatcher. You know what I mean? Like, I think honestly what it came down to is these guys realized way too late in the game that it was a rebuild. And the second that Quinn Hughes identified he did not want to play there anymore, that he was going to go to the States, the second he said that, they were in rebuild mode.
Right.
And no one did anything about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, just Googling that, Minnesota, since Quinn Hughes arrived, went 27 wins, 14 losses, and 7 ties.
Mm-hmm. Well, how many games did he pull the Canucks through?
Yeah, totally. As such a difference maker. And when was that deal? When was the bad day? February something?
Yeah, 45, game 45, something like that.
And Minnesota was already doing well. I mean, he's pushed them to such a competitive conversation. They smoked Dallas tonight. In game 1 of the playoffs, or yesterday, whenever that was, they have a chance. They have a chance to, the model of having a Kaprizov and then a Matt Boldy, and then the supporting cast around him with a Quinn Hughes and Faber is actually going to rewrite the mold. You know how the Boston Bruins in 2011. Everyone want to be like the Bruins. Everyone, as soon as someone wins the cup, and not saying that, everyone wants to be like Florida right now, right? So that's the new model.
That's the model. Yeah.
But Quinn Hughes going to Minnesota could rewrite that model of if we get a top guy and a top center and 2 elite defensemen is probably enough, because that's really what they've got. And they've got some really, really good goaltending. I can't say it's the super elite, but it's very good. But anyways, yeah, the feet to the fire question needs to be, if no one's asked it, shame on them for missing that. But really, that is the most pertinent aspect of this year-end thing is what were you why? Your immediately rebuild point is 100% true. So,
yep, it's they said so many different things, right? So they're like, oh yeah, we're trying to get him to stay, and then and then at the end they're like, oh no, we knew he wasn't gonna stay, and it's like okay,
I think that's called gaslighting.
Yeah.
It's we're not stupid fans here. We're pretty savvy, but when you keep you keep seeing smoke and you say there's no fire. You're like, well, wait a second. Anyways, I think that's what we'll do for our next episode is we'll watch it and capture our thoughts and watching the press conferences. I did that for my Canucks Quest episode a couple of years ago, and it was fun, especially seeing it for the first time. So we'll do that. I'll play the video, and then we'll take our time with that.
Okay.
In your mind, is there an immediate candidate to replace Patrick Allvin? And that's also it's a two-part question, because if Rutherford's still here, if he's allowed to hire Allvin's replacement, we're going to get another puppet. And so there's two aspects. You did mention that before, but who do you think will be the next GM?
If I had to guess, I think Rutherford already knows that, what's going on. He's not going to be around much longer anyway. So he's going to do something that leaves a mark, right? I watch him put Emily Castagnone as the GM.
Yeah, interesting, eh?
Yeah,
I did see that on somewhere online, and I when I saw it, like, yeah, exactly what you said. I'm going to leave my mark. I'm going to leave some history behind here. Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
First female GM.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Hired by Jim Rutherford.
Yeah. So,
and yet, I don't. She's the thing about, she's going to be in a position where she's going to be going to Rutherford, right? She's going to be asking him, he's going to be involved without having to get involved.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that he's going to want, right? He's going to want to be able to sort of still control and manipulate, but without it looking like he is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if he says, oh yeah, Emily came to me with a couple of questions, we sat down, we talked about it, I gave her my thoughts, and then she made her own decision. It's going to make him look like he's a good mentor and not, meddling. And then, he's gone, someone replaces him, Emily's gone, and now, we're at year 4, and we're looking at, hopefully having a playoff push team in year 5.
Yeah.
With completely new president, management, coach, everything.
Yeah.
Like the front of the house in 5 years will be completely different.
As it should be. Rutherford's 73. Like you may be a Hall of Fame NHL candidate at some point, but man alive, in this business, there's only one thing that matters, and that's results. Mm-hmm. And the results have been supremely lacking. Past Emily Castagnone, however you say her name, mm-hmm. Who do you think would be the other candidates that either boys club or no boys club at that point? And boys club being a Rutherford hire versus a non-Rutherford hire.
So another potential one would, and it's again we're inside the boys club here, is RJ Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
I think Ryan Johnson's a more. If I had odds on it, I'd put Ryan Johnson at probably the top of the odds, unless someone amazing becomes available that you just can't, not get.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other guys out there in the league that, what's his name? Peter Chiarelli or whatever his name is.
Good Lord. No, thank you.
No, I know. I'm just saying. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like there's a couple other guys out there available, but do you want them? Right. Yeah. Mark Bergevin. Thank you.
One-time Canuck Bergevin. Yeah. Yeah.
But are these guys that you want right now?
Right.
They're old school. I don't know if they're development team type of Mark is always that, like, he wants to win now, right? Yeah. Sell the farm, win now. So there goes all our picks. Is that what you're telling me? Right? Trading all our picks to get players to win right now. Let's fast forward this rebuild, because that always works.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's tough. I don't know. I think it's going to be someone from within, most likely Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
Which is just going to be another someone who's going through the motions for another year.
It would be surprising if he could push back against Rutherford at all.
But that's why I think Emily, and if Rutherford steps in, right? Because RJ is going to he'll be like, yeah, here's what we're doing. Yeah. And Rutherford might have to step in and be like, hey, here's what we need to, I'm going to mingle or meddle a little. Yeah. That's why I think with the interesting pick is Emily, because Emily, she's going to be coming to him.
Yep.
She'll be asking the questions. And so he's going to be meddling without meddling. And I think he sees that. I think he knows that. It leaves a mark. It makes here's a positive thing I did. Look what I did, how progressive I am.
Yep.
And now everything's about mentoring. It's not about meddling.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think, part of me is like, it's going to be RJ.
Yeah.
But then I sit there and I go, man, 50-50?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I'm of a few minds. I Googled it earlier, and then sort of in just sort of absorbing everything that's coming by. Someone said, hey, well, Ron Francis is available. It's like, well, Ron Francis has done 0 in Seattle. Part of the old boys club, that could work. It would look good. So then obviously, Ryan Johnson is a very obvious one, but then I have the same concerns where I don't think he's going to get a fair shake, because I think with Rutherford hanging above him, I don't think he's going to. We would ever really know. Then you have weird thoughts like, well, maybe a Linden comes back at some point. But then even weirder thoughts is like I mentioned earlier. It's like Mike Gillis. But that would be a clean
Jim Benning.
Yeah, well, Jim Benning. No, I think that Jim Benning.
No, I know.
Yeah, but Gillis as a legitimate, I didn't like Gillis when he was here. I thought he was too arrogant.
Yeah, but he did good stuff for the team.
He did lots of good things, and I've read a book subsequently. Was about around the era of the Gillis era. I can't remember the name of the book. I've got it on the shelf here. I meant to do a review of it on Canucks Quest. But I think Gillis deserves a shot, and I think that he deserves a shot in Toronto. One for if he messes up, then we get to laugh at the Leafs. But he's an innovator, right? He's a bit of a rebel. Well, actually, no, he's not a bit of a rebel. He's actually quite a rebel. And so, actually, I Googled when you were talking there, possible Canuck GM replacements. Ryan Johnson's number 1, Mike Gillis is number 2. And this is an article on hockeywriters.com. So it's a legitimate, sort of thought and editorial on the possibilities. And then there's some names that he had never heard of before. Brett Peterson out of Florida. Brandon Prehem, which I hadn't even Googled yet. Then Lawrence Gilman. And then who I don't even know who this Brandon Prehem is. AGM of the Leafs. Okay, so he's one of the premier capologists in the league. Brett Peterson is apparently one of the brainchild for Florida's success, which is very interesting. And then it's Lawrence Gilman, and then an associate GM for the Rangers, and then Chris Pronger. That name came up just recently on social, and I thought, oh man, that is almost exactly what if you're going to give a fresh start to someone with no experience, it has to be a Chris Pronger type. No, I don't think it went well for Brendan Shanahan in Toronto. I think that's too overloaded with administrative layers, and then him and the Dubas thing really conflicted. But he was president versus the GM. And I think that the respectability of a Chris Pronger would be very interesting. That I think that even if Rutherford was here, he would have the cachet enough. He's Hall of Fame, tough as nails, Stanley Cup, Hall of Fame like, and he's written a book or two now. Like he's somewhat cerebral. I've been watching him on the Prime Hockey video broadcast, and I didn't like Chris Pronger before, but watching him on TV, there's a totally different side of him, and I've come to really like that Chris Pronger I'm watching on TV. And like, wow, that's really interesting. But that type of like firmness, resolute personality, toughness, and willing to stand your ground. Like he's like, no, Jim, I'm going to do this. I'm the GM. Like you can fire me if you want. And I think that an Aquilini type scenario of a Rutherford, Pronger, Aquilini triangle, like that would oust Rutherford. Because I think Aquilini would go to Pronger and say, no, I'll stick with Pronger. I can find another different hockey president, but I like Pronger. Like, give him a chance, right? I think that really, if it ever happened, I think it could work. I think it could work for a short term. Now, is he going to be some brilliant general manager? I don't know. Who knows? But I think it's the personality. I think it's the resume. And I think it's the character and sort of the personality that really matters. Because I would really love to see the Twins in the GM role at the Canucks at some point. Like, it would be amazing. But I don't know if that's what they're pursuing, and I don't know how good they would be, to be perfectly honest. I think they would, like everything, probably be pretty decent at it. But Chris Pronger is actually listed as number 7 in this HockeyWriters.com article.
That is interesting. Mulling it over in my head, I'm like, Chris Pronger, year 3, when Rutherford's gone, right?
Yeah.
And all the other elements are gone. I'm trying to think. Like he hasn't done it before.
Yep.
I don't know what his history or track record is with draft strategies, cap structures, right?
Yep.
A full roster construction.
Yep.
Contracts. So these are all sort of the things that GM's got to be able to do, right? You got to have...
have the right people around you, right?
Or have the right people around you. So if he came in right now, does he have the right people around him to finish a build? So that's why I say 3 years. Like, I'd bring him in as like the first guy that's taken this built team and moving forward with it. So now he doesn't even have to worry about trying to, per se find pieces, maybe just find a couple of fill-ins or a couple of things.
Yeah.
But he'll have picks already in. He'll have decent players in the mix. Yeah, then maybe give him that chance. But I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one.
I hadn't heard this name in any social media or anything. Is Dale Talon's on our staff?
Yeah.
I Googled how many assistant managers do the Canucks have. They have 3.
Yeah, like 3, yeah.
They have 3. So Emily, Cammie, and Ryan Johnson. But Dale Talon is a senior advisor to hockey operations. Now, Dale Talon is an excellent GM. He was the architect for Chicago. He was the architect for Florida. And he got kind of burned on both. As an original Canuck and everything like that, like no one is taught. It must not be really in the car. He's older than Rutherford. He's 75.
Yeah, he just might not be.
Yeah, he might just be like winding it down. But no one's talked about that. But with Rutherford, Talon to mentor Pronger, and then I don't know. I think my guess would be yes, that we have the right structure right now for Chris Pronger if that ever, worked. So I think with the assistant GMs, bring in, Henrik and Daniel if they want on a junior role. I think it's there. I do think it's there. I think it would work, but Dale Talon, 75. Wow. Anyways, I think Pronger would work. That's my guess. I think it would work.
Yeah, Dale Talon. Samuelson's in development, and Chris Higgins.
Yeah.
I'm just taking a look at all their staff now.
Yeah,
so, since you said Talon, I was like, really? I wonder who else is in there,
Right. Yeah, Higgins got promoted or demoted. They put him to content for a bit because he was on, like, I think, player development. I actually ran into him right after. I ran into him at the playoffs. Was it 2 years ago? I think during the good playoffs. Yeah, it was the playoffs. So it was the Edmonton series. And he had just got shifted over to the content role. And so where are you finding him on the... anyways, player development, Jason Krog.
I saw him in development staff, but...
Yeah.
Prospects with the AHL, right?
Yeah.
Not with the actual Canucks. He's with the Abbey Canucks.
Yeah. Funny side note, I can't even remember Travis Zajak's brother. I'm pretty sure it was Zajak's brother. I got some sort of an ad for him for like, skills development for old farts like us. And him and Jason Krog were the ones that came out, and I rallied our entire hockey league of our 4-team round robin hockey team, and we got enough cash together, and we got a 2-hour skills session with Jason Krog and Travis Zajak's brother at UBC.
Nice.
And then Krog's been with the Canucks for the last couple of years. Like, hey, that's awesome. Anyways, and then the cascade of, like, his foot staying or going, and could have been Malhotra this whole time. I like Adam Foote. I think this season took too long to get going with the system, which we talked about, that stagnant go backward system. And honestly, I would say in the last quarter of the season, that system was thrown right out. And I think we've seen the results. But the next chapter, I mean, obviously it all depends on Rutherford, right? Like, he is the linchpin in the next chapter. So.
Yep. It's going to be interesting offseason, that's for sure. See what happens.
Well, and then so if you're putting your money on it, what's your lottery button generator saying that we get in first, second, or third? What do you think?
Statistically, third. But I don't know. Part of me is really thinking we're going to get the first pick.
Yeah, that's what I think lately. Ever since the burning ember comment I said to you, and you put that stupid thought in my head about the stats being 56 or 53% chance for the Canucks picking third, I thought I've come around the corner. I said, no, we're getting first. We're going to get first, and we're picking McKenna. That's
all right. Here we go. Sim lottery. Ready? Oh, Canucks get first pick.
Nice. See,
Chicago gets second, and Rangers are third.
Yes. Love it.
And Washington moves up 10 spots to 6th pick.
Wow.
In this one.
How does that even happen? If they don't win first overall, how do they move up that many?
I know, right?
Do they win second overall then? Interesting.
I don't know. They got up to 6th, though, from 16th to 6th.
The Rangers' chances went down the toilet, just like I heard the slamming toilet lid there.
Yep. Yeah, I heard that one too. That's my son, and I should probably get him to bed.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Well, let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot. It's been almost 2 hours, so hour 45 here. So we'll wrap this episode up of Canucks Only, and we'll go back to our regular scheduled programming, I think, every Sunday or so. And actually, no, we're going to try and catch some live playoff action. So we'll say it here first. We're going to try and stream live. And for those that don't know, the episodes will be on YouTube. We'll be streaming live there. I'm posting older episodes and catching up. And then you'll start seeing these things on social media where reels and whatnot. Just find the time to do that. But I've got some new tools, and we'll see if we can make that happen. But we'll sit and try and catch some games live and do a live episode.
You betcha.
All right, my friend. Have yourself a good evening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Thanks, you too. I'll take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you for watching Canucks Only.
Canucks Only. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.